But I would also like to announce that when you go out of the door, on your right, there is a tea booth. And Karatina University specializes in purple tea. We are spreading the message of the health benefits of purple tea in this country. And of course, we'll do that in the region of East Africa and so on. So we have the Tea Institute, which is popularizing the consumption of purple tea and of course the growing and development and so on and so on. So please take the opportunity, it's free of charge. You can test whatever products our exhibitor on the stand there has to offer. So take the opportunity when you have the time. He's going to be here for the next 5 days, and these are products courtesy of Karatina University. So I'll take this opportunity to welcome our donor, Karibu, and please go ahead.
Thank you for that introduction. I'll certainly be one of the when I came to Kenya, I said I'm going to make sure that I go back home with my own bag of pepper tree, because apparently it's even better than Japanese green tea. So we have it homegrown in Kenya, so we're all looking forward to something it. My name is Sekai Ngarize. I am the Climate and Forest Advisor for the Climate Action for Africa, a program which is being funded by the Canadian government to support Africa or to enhance Africa sub-Saharan, accessing the technical assistance. And then I'll talk about the website and what you need to do when you go on the website, how you start to put in your proposal or download any forms that you need to complete. And then we can have a brief Q&A session at the end, so you can ask me all the questions that I can answer. Thank you. So next slide, please. Now, what do we do? As part of Canada's International Climate Finance Commitment, this Climate Action Program for Africa provides what we call targeted short-term technical assistance. Again, this technical assistance is based on the needs that you have identified, that countries have identified. So it is based on locally identified needs. And we are targeting 48 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, of course, there are some exceptions, but I'll talk about those later. Any eligible recipients include organizations in sub-Saharan Africa. So these are institutions, including government institutions, NGOs, academia, universities like Karatina University is taking the opportunity, that's why you're all here. And we also have the private sector who can also submit proposals. So it can be private sector in Kenya. It doesn't have to be private sector in developed countries. So it can be private sector across all Africa sub-Sahara. So that's an opportunity for you to engage with the private sector in trying to access the technology. To give you a little bit about the context. And then you submit. I think Professor Mwangi can even tell you because he's already gone through this process. So he's your living example of what can happen if you persevere. And then you submit, requesting organizations submit this request for proposal. This is done online, by the way, when you're going through the RSF route. I'll give you all the links at the end of this presentation. I suppose we can also share this at the end with the participants. Then you can just click on the links in the presentation and access the website. And then the third step, you can go to the next slide, thank you. The third step is when you submit it to us, we will review. The project team applies a criteria for approval in line with those 3 project pillars that we have included. So there are requirements when you reach this stage, you'll be given a template that you can use where you need to align the project outcomes with also the national outcomes. Whether your project is supporting NDC mitigation or adaptation or any of those 3 pillars, strengthening institutions and so on. That I think you can access. I think there's an example of that on the website as well. It's in Excel format. But the template for the proposal, it's in Word. You can actually download it and then complete it and then you upload it on the website. The fourth stage is participatory elaboration and design. Again, this is where the project team from the Africa project works with the requesting organization to finalize what we call the terms of reference. And these are developed by the requesting organization with the help of Alinea. Yeah? Actually, I should have said this whole project is supported by 3 different companies, Economy and I can't remember what this one is, WSP, but really Alinea is leading on it. The other of these organizations, some of them are focusing on the energy sector as opposed to doing all the 3 pillars. Once we have done that, we basically, the Canadian side will recruit and select a team of technical experts with the relevant expertise for that particular project. And then project team may raise any issues, or then they will shortlist or select the successful bidder. This process may take up to 3 months or less, depending on how fast your side as well is, and also their side. Yeah. And then you can go to the next slide. The 6th step is basically the engagement and planning. It's here the technical experts and the requesting organization engage and plan implementation. Under implementation, again, the technical experts will work with the requesting organization to develop a work plan and schedule. This can be done remotely, but normally most countries are requesting that they want the experts to come in country so that they can work directly with the stakeholders. A bit like what we are doing now. Yeah, but for the RFS route. The monitoring and reporting part, again, this is normal in any project. The technical experts will monitor the progress in line with the project performance measuring framework. Again, this is more of an internal document that is used under this project where we look at your progress and we can assess against our own indicators and outcomes. This whole planning process may take up, the Canadian government is providing, is that it's much more accelerated or is expedited in the sense that we don't have so many difficult procedures. You know what it's like sometimes when you apply for the UN or some of these international organizations, it takes forever, maybe 1 year just producing in terms of reference. So this is meant to expedite the process to make sure that we can enhance ambition but also support capacity building to implement the NDCs. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a schematic flow of what I've just shown you in the previous slide. So we don't have to take, if you are really quick, you can do all this processing, the procedural parts in 3 months, and then you do the rest in the remaining 9 months. So it's really meant to ensure that the money goes out of the door quickly and the work is done. Yeah. And then if you go to the next slide, yeah. I did say I'll show you the website. So when you go to basically there are different modules there. You can just click on the relevant one that you need. But it will also tell you a little bit about, again, those 3 different pillars that we were talking about earlier. So you can select the topic or the one that is relevant for your project. And then it tells you a little bit here about what to do. I can actually read that myself, it's too far. Yeah. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, request for support. This one is very important because requests for support have a slightly different procedure. We start here. You download your forms. It also tells you, once you've downloaded your forms, if you want to make sure that you get support and you get it quickly. So, and then you just follow the links here. You can also download the templates for the proposal in French or in English. Yes, so I think this one was selected here was English. And then it just tells you what you need to complete here online, the name of the requesting organization, and so on here. If you go on to the next slide, I think that's the last one actually. For the SSE, the process is slightly different. I think also Professor Mwangi can help you here because he's already gone through that. Normally when you come up with your concept note, we also have a template for that, which you can request. You submit it to individual advisors. So let's say if you want to do something on climate and forestry, it's me. If you want to submit something on the energy sector, we have another technical expert who is focusing on this sort of just transition, all the energy projects. You submit it to him, he's French. So it will tell you, well, you won't see anything here again. We also have an expert who is covering climate governance. That's the other pillar. I suppose once you get in touch from the contacts that you get here, we will direct you to the right person. I will also share my contacts at the end of this session. It's a pity we didn't have any leaflets to give today because that would have been fantastic. But when you click on those links, you go straight to our website. Yes, so the floor is open for questions. I think I already see questions over there. Go ahead.
You need a microphone? Is there a microphone you can...
Are you going to really loud?
No,
I can say she can project her
voice.
Thank you very much. My name is Kodri Baigani. I'm from Rwanda. I wanted to ask about the requirements of an NGO that has to submit any application. Does it need much?
Sorry, you wanted to ask about
the requirements.
Requirements for submission.
Yeah, for an organization.
Okay, yes. It depends now whether you want to go for the RFS route or SSC route. If you want to go for the RFS route, we have to follow those procedures that I showed you there. You go to the website, you download your template for the proposal, you draft your template, your proposal, and then you submit it. And then once you submit it, we will review to see if it qualifies using certain criteria like I was showing you. If it qualifies, then we'll write back to you, and then we take it from there. Yeah, so NGOs, private sector, academia, government institutions, they can all apply. So it is not segregated. So yes, the answer is yes. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Yvette Murindi, and I'm from Rwanda.
You're from Rwanda as well?
Yeah. I would like to ask if even like all the East Africa countries are included in the coverage, or among these 44 countries, you cover from sub-Saharan Africa.
Yes.
I'm wondering if all East African countries are included.
Oh yes. Sub-Saharan Africa is every country that is in the south of the Sahara. So it's Africa sub-Saharan. Rwanda qualifies east, west, south. You all qualify, with the exception of the northern states. But otherwise, Africa sub-Saharan qualifies, all countries. I must say that I know that Zimbabwe and Sudan and Seychelles, there are exceptions there. If they apply, if they put in proposals, then they need to do it through an NGO. The Canadian government will work directly with those governments in those countries. But it's not because they're saying we don't do it, but it's just the government's issue. They would probably want an NGO to apply. But any other part of Africa, NGOs, academia, individual governments can apply directly.
Yeah, thank you. Have you already like having the intervention in Rwanda? Have you already worked within Rwanda? Like having intervention in Rwanda?
Mm-hmm.
Are you already having intervention there?
Do we have any work that they've done in Rwanda?
Yeah.
I think I heard yesterday, I haven't met the ladies yet. I understand there's quite a few, yes, at the corner there, from Rwanda who have already worked with Alinea to submit. So it doesn't really matter how many partners apply. Let's say if 2 African countries, for example, or Africa sub-Saharan again, wanted to put a proposal together. Something like, I know that SADC is thinking of putting in a proposal for an MRV hub, which means maybe South Africa and another country can put the proposal together. So they are basically working as a regional entity who want to seek technical assistance. So you can also do that. What they do, even one organization can apply twice, so long as they meet that limit of 250,000. Yeah. So maybe you may have one project that is up to 100,000, right? And then you have another project that's up to 150. So you can also apply like that.
Yeah. And also, I would like to ask the fund, the envelope. How is the size of the envelope for the project you found? How is the
okay. The maximum limit for the request for support is 300,000 Canadian dollars, which means it's about 250,000 US dollars. But for the SSC route, the maximum you can get is 100,000, equivalent of 100,000 USD.
Thank you.
No, equivalent of 100,000 USD, depending on the exchange rate. Yeah, so depending on the going rate. And then the limit for the request for support route is 300,000 Canadian dollars. And you can split that $300,000, which is, if you just know that roughly it's $250,000, and if you have two projects, you split it between those two, depending on the cost. Sorry, I think ladies first, then I'll come this side.
Yeah, please pass the on. Then we can take two more on this side.
Yeah, thank you very much for the good presentation. First, I'm Karogo Beatrice. I come from Uganda, and I work far end southwestern Uganda around Windy, Gorilla National Park, where we work with communities and yeah. So in this kind of funding, do you have like a phase of funding? Like for us, this period we are receiving proposals or something like that, or it's an open?
Okay, this whole program will run for 5 years, 2021 to 2026. At any given time, actually let me also correct there, they are not very keen for me to say it's a funding scheme. They're calling it technical assistance, even though we know there are ways of going around it. Yeah, in terms of phasing, no, you just need to put your project within this window of these 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the moment they are implementing, they really want they're in the implementation phase.
Oh. Thank you very much.
Which means countries can now really actively put in their proposals, do things on the ground like we're doing now.
All right, lastly,
So now we're in the implementation phase.
Yeah, lastly, I would wish your presentation to be shared on our emails.
Yes.
To help us with.
Yes, I will get Prophet to send.
I think we'll take, okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Bridget Nikita Mjenji and I am from Rwanda. I appreciate your inspiring presentation, and I wanted to know whether you only support the engagement, dialogue, or advocacy initiative.
Pillar 1 on climate, you will find all these sort of kind of projects and stuff that you can submit. You will find all these sort of kind of projects and stuff that you can submit, but definitely that does qualify. Yeah, because it's to do with strengthening governance, strengthening institutions, and so on. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Vic Fanakas.
Institutions and so on. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Vic Fanakas, and if so, you mentioned that there is some discussion by requesting some support from the Canadian expert. And some of the problem, I guess, they are a bit very African, and in writing a project, sometimes you're hoping to bring up solutions. And at what help it comes from the Canadian expert?
What was your other question?
No, it was just knowing that these experts that they get to be from Canada,
yes.
Whether they really have a ground experience of what the request
normally, from what I've seen with other countries, there's a requirement for those Canadian experts who are deployed to work with national experts. There need to be some kind of a capacity, knowledge transfer exchange. Otherwise, then you might as well maybe train your own and then ask them to do it. So for some countries, they've only requested technical assistance where they say, we want to develop a reference level for the forest sector. We've never done this before. Can the Canadian experts come and help us? Okay. So they will deploy those experts that are specifically for that. Some may say that we want to develop maybe an energy efficiency framework, then they would deploy Canadian experts, but they will always have to work with the local experts. That's a requirement.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And also, if they can't find, an expert who has those relevant skills for that particular project in Canada, then they are required to use international experts, including local experts within the region, as in within our region is in Africa. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll take two more questions, from two more people, and then we will we'll get, if there are other people who want to ask questions later on, I don't know whether you...
I am still here, I'm all yours now.
We can
Until
get them
morning,
on.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, because there are other people waiting online, so we'll give Dr. Ngarizia those questions later on.
Okay.
Two more people, please.
Okay, so my name is Abby Murage from Kenya. As a follow-up question, how does that play out in academia, like the expertise? Let's say you want to carry out a project PhD for a number of students, and maybe it's in the pillar of knowledge sharing, and you want to appeal for funding, but specifically for academia. So after the completion and learning stage, and maybe someone graduates, I don't know, how does that play out from the...
I hope I understood. Let me just summarize the question that you're in academia, you may have students who want to work on a particular project that fits under any of those three pillars, right? Maybe it could be a thesis for their master's or for their PhD, maybe to develop an emission vector for agriculture, to do that. So the way to frame that, I would say, try and align it with the goals in your NDC. So, for example, if you look in the energy sector, in the inventory, for example, or even in mitigation, if you're looking at mitigation, what mitigation actions need to be taken in the energy sector? Someone could study that, or one specific area, energy efficiency, or if it's in the agriculture sector, someone may say, we want to develop emission factor for a particular livestock breed. We think that this fits within the NDC for Kenya, or for Rwanda, or for Ghana, because key thing is to align the outcomes from that project with the goals of the national context and how we are framing your NDC. And I would also say, please talk to Professor Mwangi, because he now understands the game. He has walked the road. Of course, come to us as well. We are there to help you. So sometimes if you submit and we think it can qualify, we would work with you to make sure that we frame it correctly. That's what we did when Professor Mwangi submitted his initial request for support for technical assistance. We drafted the proposals. We can also provide support. So, yeah.
One more person from there. Okay, go ahead, and then we can...
Like I'm a young researcher in Kenya, they're working on a project. So my question is, are individuals eligible for that support? Can they apply and be supported to do their projects? And then number two, I would like to know are they related, or I would like to know that. Thank you.
Let's answer the first one, that if you are a single individual and you want to access technical assistance, right, can you apply? It's usually much easier if you are representing an organization or an entity. So if you are doing research, are you doing research for a government institute or for a university? So it's better if it's an organization as opposed to a single individual. So it's better to attach yourself to an institution that will then help you to put the proposal through. Because they normally fund institutions, organizations, yeah. And then for the second question on the difference between the SSE event, right? And what was the other one? Difference between the SSE event? Actually, okay, yeah. Carbon markets. Basically, participation of countries under the Paris Agreement, participation of countries in carbon markets is voluntary, right? Now, if a country has decided to apply Article 6, right? Then they would say in their NDC that they are also going to meet the targets in their NDC with credits from, they call them ITMOs now, from the Article 6 program. So if, I would say there's a link with carbon markets, because some countries, they're still in the readiness phase to implement Article 6. So what they first need to do is to make sure that the country is ready to be able to participate in carbon markets. So how do you set up, align your institutions, the governance, the regulatory framework, the registries, and all those things, the verification mechanisms that then allow you to participate in Article 6. So basically what I'll say, the link is there, yeah, with the type of technical assistance that fits under those three pillars. So if, let's say, in implementing your NDC, so long as you can align it with your NDCs, your climate actions, whether it's an adaptation or mitigation, Article 6, I would perhaps say mostly made under the mitigation side. If you want to enhance ambition and you want to participate in carbon markets and you're going to use those credits to meet your NDC. So yes, I would say the link is there, but it's how you frame it. Yeah, so the example I've given in Zimbabwe, I know a few countries that are applying for technical assistance to develop a carbon markets framework in readiness to participate in the Paris Agreement under Article 6.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes. Uganda, okay. Sorry, maybe you speak up a little bit or use the microphone. Yes.
Please take the mic.
Thank you.
Okay, I have two questions. One is related to the others. Whether you have work related to all this in Uganda.
Whether we have done any work in Uganda.
Exactly.
Okay, let me answer that one first. And then, Uganda, yeah, I know they submitted something last year, but I'm not sure it went through. At COP27, I think I had a discussion with some of your colleagues because we had a side event, and they were interested in applying, but so far I don't think they have yet put in their proposal. But whether you're coming from a university, government, organization, you can also still apply, irregardless of whether the government has applied or not. Remember, this is open to organizations, to government institutions, private sector, and NGOs.
Okay, thank you. Then number two, I have a query around the NDCs, and then somehow you said locally led. So locally led actions that align with NDCs, but of course there are situations around whether NDCs actually target locally led actions. So I'm wondering whether actually it's locally led or is it open? Is it community based? Is it
Okay. Let me see if I understood your question. Yes, the reason why this program was set up was to support Africa Sub-Saharan to implement their NDCs. But it doesn't mean that you can exclude, for example, projects that are also meeting the needs for sustainable development. But the idea is that the climate actions that are outlined in your NDCs, so the project that you're developing under this mechanism should be aligned to the climate actions and the overall development agenda that the country has. So I would say, I'll put it like that, because normally you frame climate change in the context of your development objectives, right?
Yeah, I think it's clear.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe it shouldn't be locally led, but open as long as it responds to the...
I see, okay, maybe that's semantics. Okay, locally led, we mean national needs, it's country-driven. Yeah, country-driven. So it's the needs that are defined by the country, as opposed to us telling you what to do. Okay.
Let us appreciate Dr. Ngarize. Thank you very much, Dr. Ngarize. I would like to suggest that if there are any more questions from anybody in the audience, please forward them to Mr. Omae, and we'll ask.
I can respond via email as well.
Okay. she can also respond via email.
Or tomorrow I'm here in the morning, but...
Yeah, we'll see if she has time, and if she's available, she'll be able to answer them. So please, whatever you can. Okay.
I'll join the audience.
All right, thank you. Welcome. Now, yes, thank you very much. So that's our sponsor, and it's very important indeed that we appreciate her work, and she's there for us. I'm very sure of that. She's ready to support, and let's hope that we understood the session. If there's any more that you'd like to know, I'm sure the presentation is going to be available to us so that we can take care, we can take advantage of our presence and this facility from the Canadian government. So please take note of that very much. Now the other thing I wanted to, before we go to the second presenter is there anybody or is there any section of the audience that would like a Kiswahili translation of some of the presentations we're going to give here, because all of them are going to be in English? Is there any need? If there's no need, then we're fine. That will save us time. So Professor Maitari, I think it's fine. But if there's anybody wants that, Professor Materia is willing to help. Yes, thank you so much, Prof, for that. Now we go on to the next presenter. Is going to be an online presentation by Dr. Thomas Smuka from Ohio State University in the US. And after that presentation, I would like probably, if there's anybody with a question, probably just 2 questions so that we can save on time. All right, so Dr. Maina, I think we are ready for the next presentation. Thank you.
about the research side, I think there are implications both for practitioners, makers, and the previous section in discussion about proposals and thinking about the proposals for adaptation and mitigation practice. About the way that you frame your proposals around some emerging ideas around climate risk and vulnerability. Advance my slide here. There we go. Great. So what I'm talking about today is actually based on a group effort. I am with Gary Nassimi, Nick Simpson, among others, who contributed to an effort to try to speak to some of the newest trends in understanding complex climate risk and implications for vulnerability research. And this is work that we first collaborated on in the Africa chapter of the 6th assessment report of the IPCC. And so this paper, which is available in open access, is available online. If you search for the title, you should be able to download it. This is an attempt to elaborate on a vulnerability synthesis that we developed in that IPCC AR6 chapter. It was the only chapter in the last IPCC report that really tried to take on and apply the IPCC's new risk framework. And we did that to assess the state of vulnerability scholarship in Africa, and we found some gaps, undoubtedly. And so I'm going to speak to that, speak to these new notions of risk and what it might mean for vulnerability climate change research. And so just a quick quantitative measures, and you can see the different components of vulnerability, access to healthcare, food security, issues of governance, and health status that have gone into that assessment. So this tells us something about the multifaceted nature of the vulnerability. And the IPCC assessed with high level of confidence that the African region occupies this top sort of level in terms of heightened vulnerability. And they do this by looking at some of the large assessments that are done, the World Risk Index, and the World Risk Index, and the extent to which those two assessments coincide in their conclusions. And there are, I think, a couple of, this is not a new story by any means, and probably not surprising to many people in this room. But I think there are a couple of things that I'd like to point out. The research terms of our understanding of the drivers of vulnerability. I think there is there's a major mismatch here between the research need to understand the drivers of vulnerability in this region and resources available to pursue that research. And I'm sure many of you would agree. Secondly, this creates these kinds of large-scale quantitative assessments create a kind of singular narrative about the region, which masks, of course, many positive and very beneficial processes that are underway. And so there is a risk of missing out on success stories, missing out on vulnerability reduction interventions that have been successful. And I think much of the research in this conference will be pushing back against that singular narrative. And so I think it's important that we be able to dive beneath these sort of large-scale vulnerability assessments to understand more of the local geographies of vulnerability and not to be trapped by these larger regional narratives. Secondly, thinking specifically about the IPCC's risk framework. Previously, when we talked about complex climate risk, where did the complexity come from? So risk is, in the IPCC framework, is understood as being at the intersection or determined by a mix of vulnerability, the kind of sensitivity of systems, of communities to impacts, lesser adaptive capacity, their exposure to those impacts, as well as the physical hazard itself. And most of the understanding around complex climate risk has been focused on what have been called compounding or cascading hazards. So if you think about the interaction, for example, between drought and flood risk, right? We know that drought impacts could include land degradation. Land degradation can in turn heighten the impacts of flooding. So complex climate change risk has often been understood simply in terms of the interaction of different physical hazards. And so the first innovation in AR6, in the 6th assessment report, is to recognize that all of the determinants of risk are interacting, and they're interacting in pretty complex ways. It's not a simple cause and effect relationship. There's a kind of non-linear or interacting relationship. And the physical hazard. So those interactions, which you can see in the blue, kind of brown and yellow circles, this is new in the IPCC 6 assessment framework, and this is, I think, something that that many of you would kind of recognize and true. As a fourth component, a fourth determinant, the thing about that could introduce areas of resource access to the population is the act of creating carbon offsets for high-income countries. That could be a form of mitigation that actually increases risk, increases vulnerability in the short term, and then contributes to the overall risk. We can think about some of the challenges of the RED Plus program, pilot programs in Tanzania. Negative possibility, or perhaps even increased vulnerability in certain groups. As societies response to climate change continue to ramp up. So we want to think about that complex, new notion of complex climate risk in the context of vulnerability scholarship. And so this large, I'm not sure probably the projection is here, you may not be able to see all the text, but you can review it in the paper itself. We sought to larger figure then gives us an overview of the way that multiple drivers shape overall vulnerability and risk in the African regional context. While there are important macro socioeconomic processes listed individually in the first column on the left, these drivers actually interact in shaping and social differentiation of risk at the local level. And I'll just give you a quick example. This is financial flows and deepening external debts combined to weaken state capacity, hinder public investments in health and other social sectors, and likely discourage private investment. The magnitude and role of illicit capital flows from the region emanating from countries for which total exports are heavily weighted toward natural resources, such as mining products in South Africa, Democratic Republic of Congo, Botswana, and Zambia, and oil and gas in Nigeria, Republic of Congo, Angola, Sudan, and Cameroon. Such illicit flows of financial resources magnify the negative consequences of Africa's climate dependency, pilfering state capacity, and compounding the challenges of more inclusive governance. It further increases the likelihood that substantial sections of the rural population are excluded from the benefits of large infrastructure investment, or do not share broadly in the benefits of planned responses to climate change, related, for example, to renewable energy production or technological investments in agriculture. And so, one of the things that we wanted to do with this figure is to really emphasize some of these external drivers that are often not incorporated into place-based vulnerability assessment on the continent. And we think that there's an important argument for including that, understanding the way these external drivers ultimately shape vulnerability within localities. Many of these external drivers have deep historically embedded causes, and I think that needs to be part of this conversation as well. Going back to even to colonial patterns development. So the figure that traces the origins of vulnerability from these socioeconomic processes through contemporary patterns of resource access and livelihood change, and then identifies another important dimension of current vulnerability research, and that is understanding vulnerability through an intersectionality lens. We look at the way that these dimensions of social status such as gender, ethnicity, class, age, and disability. An intersectional approach to vulnerability seeks to explicitly incorporate the multiple dimensions of social identity that are reflected in unequal power relations and differential access to resources and social methods, which are essential for limiting climate impacts and adapting to new conditions. Intersectional ranges of vulnerability differ from those concerned with the singular vulnerable group, and they're concerned for difference within those vulnerable groups, their attention to people's agency, the disruptive and creative. And so research that focused on, maybe narrowly around gender or livelihood groups and trying to understand the difference through those singular categories. And intersectionality raises the challenge of trying to understand how categories like gender, livelihood, ethnicity, and so forth, how they intersect, right? And really complex and sometimes all of this really is about trying to what geographers have referred to as a kind of denaturalizing vulnerability. To understand people's vulnerability to climate change is not simply a function of magnified climate hazard, although that is one important part of the story. We know that interacting but also partially independent of that are a whole set of social processes that we need to pay attention to. I don't know how much time I have left, but if I have just a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about a single village in the lowlands of Mwanga district in Tanzania, the foot of the North Mountains, the village of Kiria, that sort of embodies this whole set of differences. And so we're looking at, so we have Kilimanjaro here, Mwanga district. We head down along the Kenya-Tanzania border, just north of Kumasi, game reserve from Mwanga district. We're looking at Kiria village right at the base of the Zumbi Reservoir, which has been quite a bit of irrigation development. And that irrigation development has been, broadly beneficial to people with different livelihood orientations. If we look at the two sub-villages within Kiria, Imangalai A and Imangalai B, we find Imangalai A is made up almost exclusively of irrigation farmers. These are people who have settled in this lowland village, mostly from Kilimanjaro and the Fire Mountains, so they are Tagafor, is almost exclusively Maasai. What's interesting though is that the simple livelihood or ethnic categorizations don't really tell us that much about people's vulnerability. Maasai households in Kiria have been cultivating, have been growing maize and horticulture for for a generation now. And when we ask people about the most important risk reducing practices, right, both among the this kind of multi-ethnic community in Imangalai A and the Maasai community in Imangalai B, both of them say that irrigation farming is, has been really central for them in terms of buffering their exposure and vulnerability to rainfall variability. And so the district government, in terms of plant adaptation, not surprisingly, is very much focused on expanding the irrigation schemes, the irrigation scheme along the Line that sort of comes out of the new dam. And yet, despite these similarities, we find actually that both groups, both communities are very much opposed to the expansion of irrigation. And this seems somewhat like a contradiction. And so we did some mapping and investigation and created this infographic with one of the farming communities in Imangalai Bay. And they're concerned about expanding the irrigation system into the area, in this area, you can see where my cursor is pointing, is that most of the farming that's happening in the existing scheme is still, exposed to a lot of flooding. So when there's runoff from the surrounding plains, the water pools into the irrigation scheme. It's actually too much water set, and it shows that it's essentially removed from their access the remaining riparian grazing areas along the Pangani River. So already with the advent of irrigation in the village, cattle keepers, livestock keepers have been sort of pushed to the drier margins of the village. They've lost access to much of the food, and this expansion would almost completely cut them off. So on the one hand, yeah, absolutely, they're engaging in cultivation, they're engaging in maize production. They see that as important. On the other hand, they're trying to maintain a balanced livelihood where livestock still have place. And this area that to the north of the Egypt is very important tapping zone. And if that was to be put under cultivation, under permanent irrigation, if you're one, they're not the ones that are going to get access to it. And secondly, that the use is very critical resource. So we see here both the potential for maladaptation. We see the potential for responses to climate change to actually redistribute risk and vulnerability rather than simply reduce it. And we also see the intersectional dimension of vulnerability, the way that, for example, livelihood and gender patterns of vulnerability may be more complex than they see in the So I'll just conclude very quickly with a couple of points. One, we should really center these governance and policy issues, what we're talking about. We really need to upscale vulnerability research. And to do that, we need new partnerships between researchers, we need interdisciplinary collaboration. And I think there's also a real potential to draw on the, and collate and collect the many localized vulnerability assessments that our colleagues in the NGO world, as well as in those in community-based organizations that are doing, to try to map these stop and hope the audio and slides came across clearly, and I'm really happy to share those thoughts with you this morning. And I know we've run out of time, but there's time for questions, and I'll see the microphone at this point. Thank you.
That's the end of that presentation. I hope people at the back can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. I don't know whether anybody wants to try a question for Dr. Thomas Smuka. Can you hear us, Dr. Smuka? Can I have the, I don't know, do I need a microphone or do I need to come there? Thank you very much. Dr. Smuka, can you hear me? Dr. Smuka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Thank you. Does anybody have any question for Dr. Smuka before we go to before we make progress? Anybody with any question? Okay. Somebody at the back. Okay, let's take two questions. We are doing four answers.
Thank you, Chair of the session. Thank you, Tom, for the wonderful presentation. A brief and a general question. On issues of adaptation to climate change, just my personal view is we are not making much progress as the African region. For example, here in Kenya, just speak to the Kenyan context. My name is Peter Kamau. I am from Kenya. Recently, the price of kerosene went up, so people are paying more for kerosene. The price of electricity in Kenya has also gone up. That means that most people are now more vulnerable. Those people who can afford kerosene probably now have to turn to charcoal. Charcoal burning is still on the rise in Kenya. So that's why I'm saying that adaptation to climate change and also biodiversity, we are not making much progress. So my question is, Professor Smaka, what do you think, what is this one thing that African governments need to do to reduce vulnerability? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kamal, for hearing me once again. Yeah, I think your comment and your reflection is really spot on, and the discussions we're having today in the context of major thought to livelihood, that are happening, not only in the context of this multi-year drought in East Africa, but also in the context of major global economic thoughts in terms of kind of probability crisis, right? That is happening, rapid inflation that is happening largely, in part the intersection of the global pandemic and the war in Ukraine. So in some ways, if you look at the large-scale drivers, what is the answer, right? I mean, the answer is peace, and if we can see some elements of progress. Some of the work that I did with a colleague, Dr. Wu, around evolved governance, working kind of at the intersection of climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction, and land restoration. Shows that there actually, in some countries, have been pretty extraordinary progress in catalyzing a set of interventions in a very participatory and open way that have had big impacts in terms of risk reduction. So I certainly get the broader macro context is troubling, and hopefully it's not a kind of permanent situation. But I do think that there are I think we need to start to tell as well some of the success stories, right, around access to health services, right? Certainly the job is not done, but the last couple of decades have seen some pretty, pretty major improvements in terms of
Shall we say that again?
Yes.
It's unfortunate, eh? I think we don't have very good experiences from the online presentations, but nevertheless, I would like to request those who have questions. I know the lady in the front had a question, and maybe some other people in the audience had questions you wanted to
ask. Developing budget and through a very open and democratic process. This is something that's happening at country level in some countries in Kenya. And so I think those kinds of innovations are very important. We don't think of public budgeting as a climate response necessarily. But I think the thing about vulnerability is that there are a whole set of factors from health to governance, even to literacy, right, that are going to be really critical in sort of buffering people from these kinds of factors. So it's sort of a long answer. I don't know if I've answered your question to your satisfaction, but I'll sort of leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thomas Muka. We will forward the questions through the email for the conference, and we hope you'll be able to get time to answer the questions from the audience. Otherwise, we have enjoyed the presentation. Let's recognize Dr. Smuka, please. Thank you very much. So please forward the questions to through the website, through the email address for the conference, and Dr. Smuka will answer. Don't forget, of course, the questions also for Dr. Ngarize. She's waiting for them and ready to answer them. Before we proceed on to the next part, I will ask Dr. Grace, you had something you wanted to announce before we say what would be the next. Could you please do that?
Thank you, Prof. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, those voices, they sound very hungry. And now we are breaking for lunch. And I have an announcement to make before we go for lunch. Can I see by a show of hands, those participants who are not sponsored, they paid to come to the conference. Can I see by a show of hands? Okay. Those who paid, there are how many? There are 5. Okay. Those will be the first people to leave for lunch, and then they'll be followed by my good ladies, the women farmers. Do we have the women farmers here? Can I see by a show of hands? Yeah. So we will have those ones who are the participants who are not sponsored by the conference will be the first to leave. Then they will be followed by women who are here. Then after those ladies who are here, the women farmers, they'll be followed by the group that entertained us here, the Mwamboko. From there, we will have the international participants, and then you have the students. I want also to make an announcement regarding our food. For those who paid for the conference, you will not be charged for food. It is taken care of in the fees that you paid. For the women farmers, you'll be here with us for 3 days, and you have been paid your some allowance for your food, isn't it? Yeah. So we will give you food for the 3 days, but you only give us 1,000. 1,000 will take care of your foods for the 3 days. Yeah. For international participants, you have also been paid for your food, but we only need 400 from you for your lunches, because your supper is taken care of at the hotel and also your breakfast. So we will require 400 for the 3 days, for the 2 days, because the third day you'll be going for an excursion. You'll be going to the field. For students, the Dean of Students will talk to you, and also Dr. Kinyanjui regarding your food, and that is how it should be now. So, before we start moving on for lunch, I would ask someone to pray for the food. Yes.
Thank you, Dean. Before we pray, we are going to have 40 minutes for lunch, or 30 minutes. Can we have 30 or 40 minutes? 40. Okay, we'll have 40 minutes. It's now 3:20 on my clock here. So by 4 we should be here. When we come, for those who are going to do the presentation, we're going to have probably 3 or 4 presentations before we break off for the day. We are going to restrict the presentations to 15 minutes. And I'm going to ask somebody to do the timekeeping. When your 15 minutes is over, that will be the end of it. So please try to squeeze your presentation within the 15 minutes. That is an humble request from me, so that we can have as many presentations as possible, because we already have about 8 or 9 to go. 8, 9 to go. And that's a long, so if we restrict it to 15 minutes, we'll see how far we can go. Thank you very much. I think we'll need a prayer champion for the food before we go out. When am I?
Yes, I volunteer to pray for our food. Where the ladies, I know ladies are prayer warriors. I volunteer, lady. Oh, good.
Thank you at this particular moment for the lessons we have gone through. Thank you because of the food that we are going to take. We bless it in your holy name. We praise and we give you honor and glory. Amen.
Thank you. So we are